How to do conflict with your dismissive avoidant. I hear people all the time that ask me the question, well, how do I actually get around this conflict problem and actually get to conflict resolution with my dismissive avoidant? So if you're new here, you probably need to go back and look at some of my other videos that talk about dismissive avoidance, the different behaviors that you will see in relationships from them and with them, and the different reasons that they are the way that they are. So typically dismissive avoidants will avoid conflict at all costs. They tend to brush things under the rug and avoid it. Conflict feels very bad to them. One of their core needs in a relationship is peace, harmony, things being sort of easy, carefree, things like intimacy, vulnerability, transparency, commitment, expectations, conflict. All of those things terrify them because they do not know how to show up well in those things. They know that they are inadequate in those ways, and so conflict really is very difficult for them. So Leslie Wells, Connection Coach here. I help individuals grow, heal, thrive, repair their relationships and their relationship to self by looking at things through an attachment lens. I also help people rebuild and repair after major attachment ruptures. So the first thing that I want you to realize before even going into conflict with your dismissive avoidant partner or any partner is that conflict should be a tool to bring you closer together. When you get done resolving a conflict, you should feel a better sense of safety, security, intimacy, and feel like the relationship is solid and more stronger, that you've taken a problem and you've tackled it as a team together. So whenever we have conflict, we need to understand that the goal is to break down any walls or boundaries that are between us and our partner. So any disconnect that is there. That's the goal of conflict. If your goal of conflict is to go and create disconnect, or you're doing it in a way that creates disconnect, you're not doing conflict correctly. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm upset with my dismissive avoidant partner because they are always spending time with their hobbies, they're working too much, or they're spending time with their friends, and I feel deprioritized. This is a common theme with dismissive avoidance. So as I'm dealing with this, if I decide to avoid conflict and keep the peace, then resentment is growing for me around these things, feeling like I'm under prioritized, I'm unappreciated, there's not enough space made for me. There's feelings that are going on for me. And internally, even if things look okay externally, internally, there is a disconnect between me and my partner. So the goal for me when I bring up conflict with my partner should be to break that boundary down, close that gap so that we are reconnected. So if I go at my dismissive avoidant in the wrong way, I'm going to create more disconnect. And in addition, I'm going to send them into a trauma response where there's going to be even greater disconnect. So it's important to go in remembering the goal of conflict. So let's examine some of the characteristics of dismissive avoidant, because we're going to use that to help resolve conflict with them. And we're going to use it in a way that we can actually approach conflict without them running and hiding from it. So dismissive avoidants are intellectualizers. They don't like to get in their feelings because they do not know or understand or have access to their own feelings, and they certainly are overwhelmed by yours. That's what we know from their childhood wounds. So we're not going to go into things with feelings because we automatically know we're going to lose them from the rip, right? So they're intellectualizers. They tend to show up with acts of service and being able to come and fix things. That's sort of their love language. So we're going to use that. They also have that inner defectiveness wound, and so we want to make sure that we never approach them critically. We want to make sure that we do not attack their character. We want no character assassinations. We want to make sure that we're not doing you statements. Well, you did this, you did this. I even caution about using I feel statements with the dismissive avoidance. What is the point in saying I feel this if you're referring to something negative? Because if you're using it, it's okay to use it in a positive sense, I think. But if you use it in a negative sense, then they're still going to hear, well, you made me feel this way. I feel this way because you did this. I feel this way because you did not do this. So if you're going to use I feel statements with a dismissive avoidant, make sure that you use it in a way that they made you feel positive, in a positive way, or something that they did well. So we'll talk about what that looks like in just a second. The other thing I think people don't understand about the dismissive avoidant is just because they show up really badly because they do not have emotional intelligence, they don't have that emotional attunement, they weren't brought up with it. So they do not know how to recognize emotions in others or how to appropriately show up for those things. They don't know how to validate them. They don't know how to sympathize. Empathy is very difficult for them. They just don't have the skills. But deep down, they truly want to be able to show up well for you. That's part of the reason that so many dismissive avoidants a lot of times will really do things through acts of service. They will really work hard to provide for you. They will do things around the house. They might do projects. So they do want to meet your desires, and they do want to take care of you, and they do want to make you happy. They just always have this fear of failure, that they're not going to get it right. And that defectiveness wound and that fear of failure means that a lot of times they don't even make the attempt. So if you're coming at them critically and they feel like the conflict is actually causing more of a disconnect, you're going to lose them. So here's a way that you could approach your dismissive avoidant that's non-critical to get something that you need from them, to get an unmet need fulfilled. So let's go back to that example earlier where I'm not getting enough quality time with my partner who is a dismissive avoidant. I'm going to take this from the perspective of a fearful avoidant, leaning anxious. I see that dynamic a lot. And one of their needs is to be seen, heard, and understood through deep conversation, not just superficial stuff. And with DAs, things tend to stay superficial. So I may say something to my dismissive avoidant partner along the lines of this. Hey, I really feel so safe and connected and appreciate when you set time aside for me to really share what's going on in your world with me. That really makes me just feel so good. And I really would like to spend some more time doing that. I really desire to spend more time with you in addition to the fun time that we spend where we kind of get to know each other and have deeper conversations. For me, that looks like maybe once or twice a week for about 15 minutes. How can we work together to make that happen? And are you open to that? So there's a couple things that I did there. I expressed my desire, and dismissive avoidants really want to show up for your desires and they want to show up well for you. They were brought up being praised on achievement a lot of the time, and they are doers. So that gives them something to do. I was very specific. I was not vague on exactly what that looked like for me. How many times a week? How long? I kept that time short because I did not want to overwhelm them. The other thing that I did is I came at them non-critically. I said something that I really enjoy that they do, and I made sure that I did it in a way that didn't say, you don't do this, or you do this too much. I didn't come with a lot of emotional reactivity. I just kept it very neutral. And matter of fact is, this is what I desire. It looks like this. Are you able to provide it? And then what I'm doing there is not ordering them around or making them feel control. I want them to get their buy-in, and I want them to come up with an idea of how they can make that happen for me, because then they're more likely to actually follow through. I also modeled healthy vulnerability so that they could see what that looks like. And I talked about my feelings in a way that wasn't overwhelming so they could hear the verbiage around the feelings, the emotions, and sort of what that sounds like. What I am not doing, I am not forcing them to be vulnerable. I am not forcing them to get into a conversation where they feel attacked. I'm addressing a behavior, and I'm not coming at it from a negative perspective. I'm also not asking them to explain and go through their emotions and how they feel about something on the spot. They need time to dig into their emotions, to process them, to be able to verbalize them. So putting them on the spot and demanding, do you feel the same way? Well, don't you feel like you don't get enough time with me? Are you okay with this being this disconnect? Is going to make their brain go completely into a freeze response. I approached this in a positive way so that I could create an opportunity for him or her to lean in instead of an opportunity where I'm pushing someone away and creating more disconnect by making them feel bad. And there's this optimism of hope, right? There's this hope that, oh, she's got a problem. There's something that I can show up well for her in. She's given me exactly the layout for what that looks like, and maybe I can do it. So the next thing to do is when somebody actually follows through is you make sure that you validate them. You make sure that you show that it's appreciated. So after that conversation, if they're able to stay present in the conflict, like the next day or something, I may say something along the lines of, I'm really grateful that you were able to hear me out the other day, or I appreciate you being open to making more time for me and being able to have that conversation with me. It really means a lot. A lot of times I even will acknowledge whenever someone is able to stay present in a hard conversation, because I think they appreciate that it's really difficult for them to do that. So when I say, I know that was a hard conversation and I just really appreciate you being able to stay engaged with that, it really speaks to them sometimes. So what do you do post-conflict to repair quickly? One thing you can do is acts of service. Dismissive avoidance, whenever there's a problem and they kind of brush it under the rug, they will show up to move past it and to show that they love you by doing something for you. That's just their nature. They might do something around the house. They might, go and stop and get you Starbucks. So you can do that to them after conflict so they can lean in quicker and be able to sort of come out of that trauma response and repair. So you can do that. You can also make sure that you do something to be carefree and have a laugh together, because they don't like to stay in conflict. So lighten things up. Play a prank on them if they like that kind of stuff. Make a joke. Do something to lighten that atmosphere so that you can repair and connect quicker. Again, validate them. I know we had a conversation yesterday that was really difficult about spending time together, but I just want to let you know that I really do see how hard you work to provide for us, and I'm so appreciative of that. Don't keep it all negative. So hopefully that gives you some tools to actually help with conflict with your dismissive avoidant and help you re-engage and repair faster.